I scored in the 98th percentile on the SAT. I was a national merit semifinalist, and I've helped over 100 students improve their SAT scores as well, including some of the people you're seeing on the screen right now. So I'm going to show you exactly what I would say to do within the next 2 months if you want the best chance of scoring well on your next SAT. If you have 2 months to prepare for the test, we don't need to go for ultra basic, boring advice. We can actually get to the heart of what is causing you to lose points on the test and eliminate each individual thing systematically. And in fact, it's not even as complicated as you may think it is. Most of the difficulty comes from not knowing what to do or thinking that there's some better way. You have 8 weeks to prepare for the test. And as I already explained in the intro, I am giving you a strategy that has a very, very high chance of getting you to good results. I'm very, very confident that anybody who actually watches this video and follows every single step of this plan to a T will get a very, very high SAT score, or at least much, much higher than they would have gotten otherwise. So the thing you got to ask yourself is really, does that sound good to you?
Bruh.
Or do you think there might be some better plan out there that could help you even more? Because here's the thing, there probably is. Like, I'm willing to give it that there's probably some SAT tutor out there who said a better plan than the one I'm going to say in this video. I'll say that. But the truth is, the amount of time it would take to find this other plan, maybe that's just like 2 weeks in and of itself. Maybe it's even more than that. Maybe you'd have to spend all 8 weeks just searching for that other plan. Or even if you did find the plan, maybe you'd still have to like analyze it step by step and compare it to other stuff and look for other options, ask ChatGPT, all this stuff. The amount of time that you'll save by just listening to what I say in this video and following it is going to get you likely a much better result than if you spend like 4 weeks searching for something else and only then even try doing it. And even then, say you're probably still like doing it haphazardly. If you just follow the stuff in this video, you have a very high shot at a good score. If you think that there's going to be some better option, sure, maybe there is, but the amount of time that's going to take to look for it is just going to waste so much time that you do not have. Because the truth is, all of these 8 weeks are very, very valuable. I know it seems like you have a crazy amount of time, but I've worked with students before, and I realized 8 weeks for preparing for the SAT actually is really not that much time. Like, it would be good if you had even more time than this, to be honest with you. But 8 weeks definitely is enough to get a very strong score. Week 1. This is when you want to perform the diagnosis. You probably expected me to say this, but what I'm going to say is slightly different from what you might initially expect. But you see, you need to take some kind of diagnostic test. I have a free diagnostic test in the link in the description below in my free school community. It has only 14 questions that can actually tell really, really well what your score range is likely to be on the SAT. So not much time required to take it, and also pretty good results at the same time. Now, if you want a bigger, like broader and more detailed look at your SAT score right now, you can also just take a full-length practice test. You know, that's what most people do. Blue Book has a great library of practice tests that you can take, and you can see what you get on that and do well. But regardless, when you do this, you're going to get results like this. You're going to see the exact places that you're currently messing up on, where you're doing well, all that stuff. But most students look at this kind of information, you know, in a terrible way. Because most students look at this and they're like, oh, okay, I'm doing really well in algebra, for example, but I'm not doing as well on craft and structure. So I should probably just like be fine with algebra, not spend much time on that, and just spend all my time on craft and structure. Meanwhile, all these other ones look pretty good as well, so they're probably fine already. The issue with that is when you have this very surgical lens where just like, okay, I'll just take this exact thing because this is what the diagnostic test told me, you're very, very liable to potentially make a very big mistake. What I mean by that is maybe, for example, the practice test you took was a really easy algebra test. Like maybe the algebra questions were just very, very simple compared to most practice tests. So of course you did really well on these. And maybe the craft and structure questions were very difficult compared to most practice tests. So of course you did a little bit worse on these. And you're so focused on these two individual things that you're just going to completely miss all the other stuff and all the different things maybe in algebra that you still aren't perfectly fine with. All the different things in, you know, maybe information ideas that you're still not perfectly fine with. Instead, what you want to do is take the diagnostic test, use the information it gives you, and take it with a grain of salt. If there's anything that is an outlier, that's extremely bad or extremely good, use that to guide you a little bit. But if it's just something like this, where all of them are pretty much, you know, pretty stable, nothing is really standing out to you, don't really take the diagnostic test into effect at all. Like just accept that you are at a pretty fine place, but you still need to spend in the time to do well. A good example is like, if your score in an area is just really, really bad, like if you got a, you know, say the expression of ideas is like all the way like at the bottom, so you only had 1 bar, then that's an indication that you're probably going to need to do more of that section over the course of the next 8 weeks. But if you performed average or good in any section, just do the normal amount you already were going to do. Don't like do less of it. Don't like restrict the amount you do just because it looks good. Just do a normal amount. Because if you start restricting stuff, if you start skipping on stuff just because it looks easy, you're probably going to miss something and you're going to see it on the SAT and it's going to screw you over. So instead, just treat this as normal, and if something is really bad, accept that you might have to do more of it. And now with this information, you can kind of plan out how the next 7 weeks are going to go. Chances are this diagnostic test is not going to take an entire week, so I'm just saying this as the only thing to do for this first week, just to get you kind of like eased into it. But if you have time to like just go on to the next week, just do that, because getting ahead on the schedule will be really, really beneficial for you later on, as you'll see as for what we're going to talk about in a few minutes. Week 2, core content. You see, most students, when they're reviewing content for the SAT, they just do literally everything. They do every single topic they can possibly find, do all the different like Khan Academy lectures, all the different things they can find on YouTube, every single thing they can possibly imagine. But what I found is that when you do this, typically you forget like maybe even as much as 60% of the stuff that you learn from all these different resources, just because there's so much. Like if you're learning every single Khan Academy lesson, there's like, probably hundreds of those. So there's a ton of information there. And chances are by the time you actually get to practice problems, you're going to have forgotten a very big chunk of what you had learned, especially for the math section where you're learning all these different rules and concepts and all that different stuff. So instead, what's more beneficial is just focusing on the core content. Learn the things that are most high leverage, most valuable, and then when we get to the more specific niche topics you see on the SAT, we'll have a different strategy for tackling them that I'll cover in a second. But what this can look like, I have a free Skool community with a link in the description. Don't worry, I'm not trying to sell you anything with this. Everything I'm about to say is completely free to use. So if you go to the free Skool community, I have a free course on Desmos, grammar, and reading passages. The reason why I recommend these specifically is first, get you more in the community, that is somewhat of my goal here. But more importantly, I've developed each of these courses by scratch. I included in them every single thing that I think is important to know for each of these different things on the SAT. So I know what's in here and I know what is in there will actually help you improve very quickly. So go through each of these courses and go through them very, very meticulously. Like for example, with the Desmos course here, you see there's 9 different days there. So, it's a little bit of stuff there, but at the end of the day, it's not too bad. Like each of these videos is fairly short. Like this one is like literally just a minute long. Each of the different information in there is pretty short as well. So it's not going to take forever. In fact, this is my 1-hour Desmos course. Like you can literally do this in only the span of 1 hour if that's all you got. But when you do go through it, make sure that you are doing all the different work listed. Like there's going to be practice problems at the bottom of each page. Make sure you're actually going ahead and doing those practice problems. Like don't just skip over stuff and say, oh, I'll come back to it later. Because if you're just skipping over stuff, you're not going to be getting the most amount of information. You're not going to actually learn anything. And you're going to be kind of in the same situation as those people who are just learning a bunch, but not actually, improving, and they just forget most of it. Same thing with my grammar course and same thing the reading passage course. All these are very, very fast to go through. Like you can probably go through them with the rest of today if you want to. But the biggest thing is making sure that you're actually treating these as, a course. Like you really are trying to pay attention. You're like, pretend like there's a test on the information, which there kind of is because you are taking the SAT, but pretend there's like an actual test on like, for example, verb tense that you have to take after this and act as if that was what you had to do. And now the great thing as well about these 3 courses is that these apply to other areas of the SAT as well. So for example, if you learn Desmos really well, you may think that you're only learning Desmos, but in actuality, you're going to be learning math skills that apply all over the SAT. And especially with the way I've structured this course, I explain not just basic Desmos skills, but also how the math behind it works. So you're going to be so much better at math than any student who just like learns a random, Desmos hack list or something like that. Same thing with grammar. Like when you learn grammar, obviously that's going to help everything else in the reading section go a lot smoother just because you understand how the syntax of the sentences work. And especially with the reading passages, like if you learn how to do reading passage problems, you're going to be able to do transition problems, you're going to be able to do student notes problems, you're going to be able to do all these different complex, words and context problems as well. A lot of the exact same stuff applies. So it's not like you're just learning one thing for each of these. You're learning something that actually applies to a lot of areas of the test. I also want to throw in there my vocab guide. This is also free in my community, and it showcases a bunch of the most common vocab roots that you might need to use on the SAT. So I would say to try to memorize each of the different roots in here. There's going to be a resource in it that can help you do this through a Quizlet page. So just go ahead and try to do that. Like this will help you as well for the vocab side of things, and similar to the other stuff, this will help you in other areas of the test as well. Like if you learn vocab well, you'll be able to solve, for example, reading passages better at the same time. For the rest of the stuff, I want to advise the strategy called just-in-time information. I've not seen any other SAT tutors talk about this, but I think this is so beneficial because there's a lot of different stuff on the SAT. It's not as much as other tests that you could theoretically take in college or stuff, but there is definitely a decent amount of information. The other kind of like niche topics, like maybe statistics or, probability, percentages, those are all valuable. But the goal is instead to make it so If you don't know one of these topics, when you see a problem that's on it, you can just go ahead and watch like a YouTube video on the topic. Or you can search it up on AI, which is probably a lot easier, and just ask it to explain to you like, hey, ChatGPT, explain to me how do I do a percentages problem? And you'll just get the information like that. You don't need to go through this long drawn out process of content review for every single individual thing you might see on the SAT. We can just save it so when you do see a problem like that, you can find a video, find a resource, and have it explained to you. This is so much simpler, it makes everything so much more streamlined, and it's going to become a lot more beneficial to you as you go through these following few weeks. Now, just a quick break here. If you want to continue watching this video, go ahead, like finish watching the video and see everything else we're going to do later on in the 8 weeks. But if you are like fully set on this, if you know that you need to prepare for the SAT, if you're taking an SAT in 2 months, like honestly just pause this video and start doing this. Like go to the school community, take the diagnostic test, and just get on these 2 weeks, because it's going to be a lot more beneficial for you to use this time to actually learn the stuff than just watching a video that kind of explains it. Sure, it's good to have the kind of, broad knowledge, but you might as well just actually start applying the information, because that's how this is meant to be used. Okay, weeks 3 and 4. This is the main section of practice and review time. We're going to be trying to go through a lot of the different sections of the SAT, improve on what we've already been doing well on, and learn anything we still need to learn. SAT prep can be divided into these 3 different layers. First, this is essentially what we did in week 2. We gained the knowledge we need on these different topics like Desmos, grammar, all that stuff. But then after you do that, what you need to then do is do practice. Actually practice what you have learned and make sure it's ingrained in your brain so you can apply it well when you get to the SAT. This is for sure necessary. If you're not practicing, it's not going to be beneficial and you're not going to get any results. What's most important out of all of these 3 is the feedback side of things. If you're doing a problem and you're doing it wrong the same way again and again, you're never going to get better. You're just going to struggle forever and ever and ever. It's kind of like, if you're starting a YouTube channel. If I start a YouTube channel and I'm uploading videos, but I just upload the same quality of video again and again and again, and I don't change anything about it, it's just the same exact type of video. Maybe not the same idea, and maybe not the same title, maybe not the same topic, but it's like same quality again and again. I'm probably not going to improve that much. Maybe I could even upload as much as like 100 videos and only have like 500 subscribers by the end of it, because maybe each of those videos only was worth 5 subscribers. So that's the kind of trap you're going to fall into with the SAT prep. If you're just doing these problems the same way again and again, you're going to maybe improve a small amount for each problem. Maybe you're just going to get more used to each one, but you're not going to actually see any of this improvement you need because you're not doing it better. You're not changing your ways when you see something wrong. A great resource I would recommend for this is Onico. This is a brand new software that just came out a couple of months ago. Essentially is a gamified SAT prep software. So as you can see, I won't go through all the different stuff here that they give you, but essentially they give you specific data on how you're doing, like your accuracy, the amount of time you're spending on each question. They also give you an AI bot that you can use to generate more questions to ask anything. And also you get just 20,000 practice questions that you can use regardless. So if you just really want to improve your SAT score, if you really want to practice a lot, this is probably going to be the best software to do it. There is a paid version of it, but you can use it for free as well. Just click on the link in the description. You get like 100 problems per week. So that's honestly a pretty good amount, and you can get a lot of the same value. Full disclosure, I actually do earn a small commission if you use my link and then switch to the premium version of Onico. But I'll be honest with you, this product has blown me away. I would endorse it no matter what, and it's just really, really good. Let me also just say the goal for weeks 3 and 4 are to just get a lay of the land, so to speak, as for your SAT skill. You're trying to do as many of these different problem types as you possibly can out of these main 8, and just try to see, where are you struggling, what makes sense, what do you still need to improve on, all of that. So I say like a good rule of thumb, just like what I would recommend, is if you can do literally like 25 medium level problems in each of these 8 areas. So that's going to be like 200 problems in total. So not a crazy amount, like it's only honestly pretty small, to be honest. So 200 total problems. And if you do those, the medium level problems, so not easy, not hard, just medium, that would be a very good place to be in. Now, what do you do when you get wrong answers? You see, you're going to get problems wrong. And the thing is, most students, when they get problems wrong, they just move on. They don't do anything with the wrong problems. Don't do that. First thing you want to do when you get a problem wrong is learn the concept or strategy that needed to be used to solve it. So for example, if it's a math problem involving like Pythagorean theorem or something like that, if you did not know the Pythagorean theorem, obviously the goal should then just be learning the Pythagorean theorem. Like that's what you need to do. Or if it's a reading problem and you got this wrong because you just like read the passage poorly or something like that, learn the strategy. Like you figure out what the strategy needed to be, maybe reference my course pages before. If it's something you need to look up online, you can, and just use that strategy. Like, understand what you did wrong this first time and try to improve on it for the next problem you do. And speaking of which, the goal then should be to actually practice what you just learned. You see, this is where most people stop. Even the students who are really good, typically they just do step one when they get a problem wrong. They learn the thing, and it's like, okay, I did that. I need to do that in the future. But no, don't wait for the future. Like, do it right now. And that's the thing that, students don't want to do this because it's like, why do I have to do more practice problems? But it's like, you have to improve. Like, you have to get better at this. And the only way to do so is actually practicing on what you just learned. So what this can be is like, for example, I think a good rule of thumb is like, if you do 2 more practice problems for every single problem you get incorrect, try to use whatever thing you just learned, any concepts and new strategies, and then do practice problems using that. Again, Oniko is really good on this because they can literally generate, for you with AI, more practice problems. You can just literally like type it down here, give me a new practice problem based off of this. But even if you don't use that, I mean, we all have ChatGPT, we all have additional practice problems on other free resources, so we can use those instead. Last thing I want to recommend for weeks 3 to 4 is do another practice test. At least just one. It can be from Bluebook, it can be from Oniko, it can be from any website. Like, websites have tons of practice tests these days. Just do that and also use the strategy for wrong answers on the incorrect problems on the practice test. Now, it's worth mentioning that, as I talked about before, like, there's going to be stuff that wasn't covered in these courses that you see in these practice problems, and that is okay. Don't get frustrated, because that's what most students do. They see something that's unfamiliar and they think to themselves, man, I'm so bad at this. I'm so like terrible at math. I'm so terrible at reading. But no, it's totally okay. Like, if you see something you don't know, it's just a new challenge, it's a new adventure that you can give a shot at. So learn it and just improve on it, and make sure that the thing that you didn't know then does not persist. Like, make sure you fully understand it by the time you're done with that problem. Let me just show 2 quick examples of how this process may look in action. Here's one for math. So we have the system of equations, and k is a real constant. How many values of k does the system exactly? 4 distinct real ordered pairs. So if I look at this problem and I have no idea how to do it, the main concepts I need to understand probably first is systems of equations. Like, I need to understand, how do I use Desmos to solve systems of equations? Second thing is, what does a solution actually mean? So when it says like 4 distinct ordered pair that's satisfied, what does it mean for something to be a solution of a system of equations? And then besides that, I don't think there's really anything else. Like, maybe some basic Desmos skills, but we're going to have gotten that in the Desmos course. So these 2 things. I can learn these 2 things, first if I just want to go on ChatGPT and be like, explain to me how to use Desmos for systems of equations or something like that. Or if I just search that up on YouTube as well, I can find probably a really good explanation as for how systems of equations work and how to solve problems involving them. Then I can just go ahead and put this exact problem into ChatGPT again and say, generate 3 problems similar to this, maybe change the numbers around, change whatever, and I can try to solve. And I can say, generate 2 problems similar to this, change the numbers around, change whatever you want around, but just make it overall similar to this problem. I can try those problems out, and hopefully I can solve it correctly those 2 times. An example of how this can go for a reading problem like this, say I read the passage and I just have absolutely no idea what the passage is saying. And then I go ahead and go to answering the question itself, choosing one of the choices, and I just can't find what the correct choice is because I didn't even know what the passage was saying in the first place. Obviously, the strategical thing I need to fix is understanding how to read the passage. I can easily reference the reading passage guide. I can just try to think, how could I have better understood this passage, whatever. And then whatever the strategy is, I can better understand that for future problems. Then I can go ahead and try to do just, 2 new problems, probably not using ChatGPT to generate these, probably just doing 2 additional ones because ChatGPT with reading problems is typically not that good. And then I can give a shot, and hopefully this time I'll be able to read correctly and do these problems right. There doesn't necessarily need to be a one way of reviewing the problems. The main things you just need to make sure you have is first, getting good on whatever caused you to miss the problem the first time, and practicing it as well. If you can do those 2 things, you'll definitely be far ahead of any student who isn't, and you'll definitely will be improving quite quickly. Now we're on to weeks 5 through 8. I know I'm collapsing a lot of stuff together here, but really my advice for these weeks is going to be the same no matter what, no matter which week of the 4 you're on. When you're doing practice problems, start with the easy ones. And then after you're at 90% accuracy for the easy problems, move on to the medium ones. And once you're 90% accuracy on those, move on to the hard ones. And then once you're 95% accuracy on the hard problems, move on to the next topic. The goal here is we want really, really high accuracy in each different level of problems, because if you're scoring 90% on both of these, chances are you're really, really good at these problem types. Now, what do you do this for? Do it for each of the 8 different problem types listed here. So information ideas, do easy problems, then medium problems, then hard problems, then next topic, craft and structure, easy, medium, hard. Or if you want to start with math, you can do algebra, easy, medium, hard. Advanced math, easy, medium, hard. And you might be thinking, like, how am I supposed to do this many practice problems? Like 95% accuracy? Like, I'd have to do at least like 20 problems to even get to that point. And yes, that is the goal. Because like you have 4 weeks at this point. Like you have way more time than a lot of students I even work with, because like I've helped people improve their SAT score like 150 points in just like 4 weeks. So you have 4 weeks just for the practice. Like this is a crazy amount of time, and you should use this time to actually try to improve as much as you possibly can. Like there's a lot to do, but if you're doing this, like you will get a very high SAT score. I mean, this is something I almost want to guarantee. I mean, I feel like I shouldn't, because like then somebody's gonna be mad if they say they did and they still don't. But like I really don't know how you could do this and not get a very high SAT score if you genuinely are doing this for each one. You want a very high accuracy, and this may take a lot of problems, but the truth is the volume side of things negates luck. You know, that's a quote from Alex Hormozi, the big business guy. Like if you're bad at a topic, like say you're bad at math, if you do enough math problems, you will be much better at it. I'm not going to say you're going to be amazing at it, but you'll be much better than when you started out. If you're bad at reading, after you do enough reading problems, you'll be much better at it. This is just the truth for SAT, the truth for any standardized test, and it's going to happen. And also on each of these problems, when you do get them wrong, use the strategy I showed before. Learn the concept of strategy and then practice what you learned. Like every single time you get it wrong. And this can also just improve your accuracy as well. Like if you practice 2 additional problems and get them both right, you know, you got a little bit closer to that 90% goal that we were talking about here, 95%. So that's really helpful as well. Make sure you're not ever skipping over that process for the wrong problems. Over the span of these 4 weeks, also try to do 4 additional practice tests at least minimum. This is a lot, but I mean, you could just take like 1 practice test per week. That's pretty reasonable. If you want to do more than 4, probably even better. Like you could do 2 per week, whatever it takes, but try to give a shot some practice tests as well. This is going to be very beneficial to you. Getting good at the accuracy through problems is the majority of what you need, but you also do need to be familiar with the speed and pacing for these problems. This is again something I talk about in a lot of my different videos. You can probably just find a different video that talks about this. I'll even put one on the screen right now, I guess. It doesn't matter if you're really good at solving problems, you also need to be good at solving them in a timed environment. And this is very easy. Like if you're already at a 95% accuracy for problem type, it's going to be very easy to solve them fast and solve them without careless mistakes, all that. But you have to first get to that accuracy first. So this is kind of like the prerequisite. It's like get good at solving the problems and then focus on timing and speed and all that stuff. Don't do the opposite. Don't first focus on timing and speed and then try to get good. You know, you can get really like fast at solving problems wrong or something like that, which is just not beneficial at all. So use these practice tests as a time to really test your abilities, see where you're at right now, and just improve even more. And again, use the wrong answer strategy for any wrong answers. Last thing I think is important to mention is like, you're going to be in school likely at this point. Like, so it's very useful to kind of plan your day out like this. You know, this is actually a calendar of what my day typically was like back in high school. You know, I played tennis. I had a break time of 3 to 4 where I was just in like study hall. I had this kind of schedule for most days, and I use this time as rest time. When you're in this kind of situation, when you have a month to prepare for the SAT, it's very beneficial to you to like try to find the time that you do have available and use it for SAT prep. If you truly try to do this, like 90% accuracy in each of these, it's probably going to take, you know, maybe 1 to 2 hours per day minimum. That's just like the very bare minimum of what you need to do. So you want to make sure you have time in the day to do it. So for example, I just use the time for breaks and also the time for rest, and I just allocated that toward SAT prep. Now I know what you might be thinking, like, you know, how am I going to have time to rest now? The truth is, like, 4 weeks of really hard grinding is not going to destroy your life. Like, it's not going to be terrible. I know that's like a Sigma grindset thing to say, but it's not going to be the worst thing in the world. And I've done before, every high school student has done before who's done well in the SAT. Like, it's not the worst thing ever. So if you have to sacrifice time, like sacrificing your break time, if you have to sacrifice the time you would have just spent like scrolling on TikTok and instead use that time for SAT prep, it's not the worst thing in the world, and you will get better results as a result of that. If you have no time over the span of the week, just get really good at using your weekends then. Definitely allocate like multiple hours, like maybe even as much as like 5 to 10 hours each weekend day to work on SAT prep. Truth be told, this is a lot. I do admit that, you know, this is a, you know, very large amount of work to do. So if you are going to prepare for the SAT, you know what to do, but it is a lot of work. I don't blame you if you don't want to do every single one of each of these steps, but I'd say like at least try the majority of it. Like, do week 1, do week 2. If you want to do a little bit less practice and review your week 3 or 4, if you want to do a little bit less grinding weeks 5 through 8, that's fine. Just accept that you're probably not going to get as good of an SAT score as someone who is willing to do the work all 4 of these sections. That's not a bad thing. Like, if your goal on the SAT is like, you know, let's say a 1300 or like even a little bit higher than that, you don't need to work as hard as somebody who really wants like a 1560. Like, that's just the truth. You don't need to go super grinding if you just want a 1300. But if you do want a 1560, it is going to take this kind of, very, very intense level of focus. All the resources in this video are in the link in the description. You can join the free school community, join Onenco, whatever. I'll see you guys in the next video. Thanks for watching.
This that SAT, yeah, it's pretty mean. Trying to judge my whole life off a test on the screen. One shot, one run, no pause for rewind. If I panic, I'm done. If I trust, I'll be fine. Yeah, this SAT got my chest on freeze. Every second on the clock, trying to cut through me. But I've been grinding all week, now it's test day beat. If the curve's trying to kill me, I'ma die on my feet. SAT, you can test my brain, but you can't get to tell me my whole name. SAT, you can